Hey, this is Jeffrey from the Tint Shop in Statesboro, Georgia. I've been tinting windows for 32 years. And today we've got a older Ford F-100 pickup truck, a 1966 model. These cars, trucks, they can be very challenging, but also very rewarding. They're definitely not like a lot of the newer cars and trucks that we tint. Seal systems are different, frame systems are different. Obviously the glass is older, usually in bad shape. If you see here, this window shifts quite a bit in the channel system, like some of your newer cars, they don't do that. And we also have a vent window, and these vent windows are pretty old and crusty. All the seal systems around them are dry rotted, and so we have to do a lot of cleaning on these things for them to come out nice and clean and pretty. But I'm up to the challenge. I've already got the driver's side finished, and this is the passenger side on this old 66. And so I'm going to kind of hit some of the high points and some of the pointers of what we do on these trucks. For starters, you'll see there's some masking tape here, just regular 3M Scotch-Brite masking tape that we'll put over top of the seal systems here to kind of cover up some of that felt. These felt seals have actually been replaced, so they're all brand new. And I don't know if they're quite installed correctly, but they're there. And so we've got some tape to cover that up. That kind of helps with cleanliness as well. And you notice here on the vent window, the seals, we'll take our knife. I keep a dedicated knife to cut tint with and also to cut seals with. And we'll run this knife. If you can see some of the rubber that's coming out from behind that metal seal there is falling off there. And we're going to trim that up. So we'll have kind of a place for that tint to tuck back behind and hide the edge, but also to keep it clean. You see we're still getting some of these old seal systems out of the back. So we'll continue to trim that. And that's a good piece there. And get this all cleaned up. On these old vehicles like this, obviously cleanliness is next to godliness. And to get a nice tint job on them, you have to clean some more. So it does take a little more time working on these older vehicles like this. And if you're doing this for a shop, I would encourage you to charge a little extra money than what you would charge for a new pickup truck, because you're definitely going to have some extra time involved in these trucks. So we've got that window trimmed out pretty nicely. Just using some soapy water solution here and our single edge razor blade. We're going to razor blade this window and try to get it as clean as possible. I'll also caution you, we're not dealing with it on this truck, but a lot of older vehicles use laminate glass even on some of the side windows. And laminate glass, especially something this old, is easily broken. And you have to be super careful with them, and don't want to put a lot of heat to them. If you're trying to heat one out, you have to be super careful there as well. But you'll notice we got this window clean. We're going to take an old dirty rag and try to get out as much of this old rust and old rubber seal that's dry rotted out from around this frame system. And we're doing all of this prior just to putting the film up there to cut. Alright, we're going to put it wet. I've got some pieces already kind of pre-cut to shape here. We're using a global window film. And so we're going to get this piece on here. I normally try to tint vent windows first before I tint side windows. You notice I got this window rolled all the way down, so it allows me to kind of hang through the window and work on this vent window with it open this way, so I have access to both sides easy. So I always prefer doing the vent windows first, then I'll roll this up and work on this side window after I get the vent window done. So once we get it on here, we've got it overlapped. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze it down a little bit to kind of lock it into place, and snap me a new fresh blade here. And we're going to start jamming our knife right up into this edge against that seal, kind of angle it into the seal so we get a really nice tight cut. We're going to run that down. Before I try to force the film into corners and let it bunch up on me, I'll go ahead and tear that off and so it kind of relieves it in the corner. If you'll notice down here in this bottom corner, it wants to jam. It doesn't want to lay flat on the glass. So I'll take my knife and kind of cut it to shape. Still cut big, but it's going to lay down a lot nicer and flatter here in the corners. We're going to pull this here. So now we've got a nice clean cut edge all the way down the side. I'll come in here at the bottom and I'll get a nice cut there. There again, we're trying to relieve the film as much as possible so it doesn't bunch up. We want the film to lay down flat on the glass and we can get really nice tight cuts in the corners. So now I can rotate this one around to where I can reach it a little better. And we'll just kind of cut a little and tear away. And go right around this curve here. Got that looking good. I'll fold this out so you can see here. We're just going to take our knife, poke through, and cut straight down our back edge. Get us a nice, clean, straight cut. Here we're going to have to work around this latch, so you don't want to force anything. There again, we're going to make small cuts and tear it off, relieve it. We'll make another small cut here, tear it off to relieve it. You may have to fold this latch up here and get this out of our way so we can cut down the back side. Perfect. You notice me, I'm watching my knife blade. I'm in, I'm out. Done this for 32 years. I've never cut myself with a razor knife. And there's a reason. Always be conscientious of where your blade's at. And so when I'm not cutting, my blade's always in. Now we've got this vent window cut. And I say cut, we've got it rough cut. So what we're going to do now is take it off our glass. And we're going to go over here to our tent table. And I hope that one camera is getting a good angle here. But you'll see we'll take this film, put it up on our tent table, and squeegee it down. First thing you're going to notice is we cut this dead on this edge here, flush. What we're going to have to do is cut it back to give us a gap. Of course, our straight edge will get that accomplished for us. We don't need to hand cut that. So I'll set it back about 3/16 of an inch. And I'll come make a straight cut down that back edge. Everything else on here, of course, is not straight. So we're going to have to hand cut and trim up. You'll notice my top comes to a point, but it doesn't come to a point here. We're going to round that up. We're going to trim up some of this corner here that we didn't get. And we're also going to trim up some around the latch system as well. So this is where practice comes in. Being able to hand cut this stuff is just repetitive and practice. I tell people over time that you develop a steady hand. This takes lots of practice. So we'll trim up those edges nice and neat. I like rounding my corners. I don't like having points. Points are places for the film to peel. So having nice round corners is going to keep us from having peel issues down the road. All right. Typically when I'm doing these windows, a lot of times if I'm not convinced that the shape is going to fit the window exactly right, I'll do what we call a test fit, where I'll take the film before I peel it and I'll install it again to make sure that all my cuts and lines and everything lines up good. And that's never a bad idea. But I'm feeling pretty confident today on this old 66. So we'll go right on into the installation. I've already raised the blade of the window. I've already wiped the window down. I'm going to come and do another wipe. Seeing as how I had film on here, it bumped the edges. I also ran my knife down the edge while I was cutting the film. So if there was any residue left that I may have trimmed twice, I want to have it removed from the film. So we'll trim it up, clean it up again, and wet it down. And we'll get into our final cleaning. I use a chamois. This is a synthetic chamois, and golly, these things last for years and years before you actually wear a hole in it like I wore in this one. But we take our rubber squeegee. I like a nice soft squeegee to do final cleaning with. A lot of your harder squeegees like this Turbo are really, in my opinion, too hard to final clean. They sometimes just don't flex enough. And so I always like to use a soft rubber squeegee to final clean with. Very seldom do I use a squeegee to install film because it is too soft. It won't flush out enough water like a harder squeegee blade will. And you'll see me use a different squeegee here in a second to install the film. When you final clean a window, dirt control is everything. Gravity is your friend. We're trying to work all the water. If there's any trash or anything on the glass, we want to work it all down. And so this is all nice and clean. When we get down here to the bottom, we want to make sure that there's no water holding here at the bottom. Any water that's hanging out here at the bottom is going to have trash in it. And so when we install our film, that water can run back underneath the film and put trash underneath our tent. So now I've got the window final clean. I'm going to do a really light mist. I don't want a lot of water on the glass. I'm going to come over to my peel board. I've got my piece already final cleaned and trimmed. And I'm going to peel that. Always with your fingertips so you don't transfer fingerprints to your tent. We're going to flick up the corner there. Here we have our piece of film. See, the window's rolled down, so it's nice and easy to manipulate around. I'm going to guide this into place before I let it stick. And I'm going to keep it away from the edge about 1/4 inch. Get it on the glass, and I'm going to gently slide it into place. I don't want to bump that edge too hard. If I do, it's liable to suck up trash. So I just kind of want to ease it into the corners real slow. Line up my lines and my cuts to make sure I don't have any light gaps, top, bottom. And of course I want to make sure that this gap that I cut on the side is consistent top to bottom. A turbo squeegee, a nice small one, so I can get in here. And I'm just going to gently squeegee out some of the water. I'm not putting a lot of pressure at this time. I just want to flush some of this water out. I want to make sure that my piece doesn't slide or move out of position, that it's still in place. Don't want it to slide and bump this edge. That's important. If it slides and bumps and it pushes the film off the glass, it's going to suck dirt back underneath that film, and you're going to have a dirty install. And on these older vehicles, it's easy to do, so it takes a lot of finesse to do. But here we go. Now I'm going to flip this latch up, finish my squeegee in there, and just real gentle on that. We've got a completed vent window. This thing came out just as clean as a new one would. Now, this glass obviously is not in super great shape, and so I know this camera's not going to pick it up. You're just going to have to take my word for it. But really, really clean install. No light gaps around the latches, no light gaps in the corners. And obviously when I shut my window, what little gap that I put on the back right here is going to be hid behind the rubber seal. So obviously there won't be a light gap there either. And so that turned out fantastic. Fantastic. I know these vent windows can be a challenge, especially for a lot of newer tenters, because obviously they don't install these on newer cars. And that's some of my tips and tricks on how I do one. Moving on to the roll-up window. Now that we've got this done, I like to keep the window open. This thing is, you can't see it in the camera, but this window is kind of running downhill. So all the water, as I spray and work here, any water that gets here is going to run and track downhill and roll off this window. If I shut the window and water tracks down, it stays kind of puddled up at the bottom, and there's a potential there for that water to flush back underneath the film and cause contamination. So after I've done these windows, I like to leave them open and let the water drain off of them if there's any other water that gets on this window while I'm tinting the rest of the vehicle. Makes a big difference. Here we're going to roll this window up. I think I showed you to start with. This window does have a good bit of play in it on the regulator, so we're shifting back and forth. And we'll take that into account when we cut it. Starters, we're going to clean the window. Now I've just got a stainless steel razor blade, a single edge razor blade. You definitely want to use stainless steel. Carbon steel will scratch glass, and so we don't want to scratch the glass, and so we always use stainless blades, stainless razor blades when we're putting blades on glass. I know a lot of people have different techniques on how they razor blade windows. Whatever works for you works for you. I like to work everything down, have gravity help me out because I'm trying to push all the dirt or contaminants on the glass toward the bottom. I'm also, I like to put my hands on the glass, and if you have a feel for it, if there's anything left or that you missed, your hand will pick it up. I can feel it. And that glass is slick and feels real nice. We're going to wet the glass down again. I've got a piece of film already cut up here on the board. We're going to take it. Typically, I put film on the outside of the glass on mostly newer cars, and that's where we cut them. So if you see people installing film on the outside of the glass, basically what they're doing is just doing that to cut the glass to make it easy on them. On this older vehicle, the way the seal systems are set up, I will cut the film on the inside of the glass, and I'm able to get tighter cuts down in these corners here because the outside is shaped different from the inside, and so that's how we're going to do this one. So I'm going to line up my bottom. I've got overlap all the way around, and I'm going to flush this thing down. I've got a little bit of a dip right here, and I'm going to have to cut around at the bottom. You'll see me do that. Knife blade, and account for that dip. Alright, here we're going to jam my knife up into the corner as tight as we can, and we're just going to cut and make us a mark. You can see I made a cut here up in the corner with my knife. I didn't cut the whole thing. Back here in the back, I'm going to trim some of this off. Like I showed you on my vent window, I want to get the film flat up here on the glass, as flat as I can get it without it creasing. And I'm going to make another mark and finish that cut there. Once I get that done, I'm going to peel the film away from the glass so I can crack it and roll it down. Expose my top edge. I'm going to make a cut here. And you notice I'm going to follow that cut all the way around. Well, I can't anymore. Okay? If you notice earlier I said it's window shifts. Sometimes we'll have to roll it down, but you'll notice here this window has some motion. So what I'll do is I'll force this window all the way forward to make this back cut. Okay? Then, once I get that cut, I'm going to grab this glass and force it forward. You see here in the front, it actually exposes the edge of the glass. So we'll make this cut on around. Get that there. All right. Basically what we've done now is cut our pattern for this window. So we're going to take it back to the table. Hope that y'all can see this in the camera angle. And basically what we're going to do is connect the dots. I made a cut here, and of course I made this cut as well. And so I'm going to connect the dots here and use my straight edge to get nice, clean, pretty cut straight edges. You'll notice that a lot of people will actually take their knife and cut all the way down here. Obviously, you can do that on some cars and get away with it. The way these seals are, from the side to the end to the out, you have to be careful in doing that. And so I'll use my straight edge, and so I can get a lot cleaner cut. There again, just like our vent window, I like nice, pretty rounded edges. And I'll do all of that freehand on the glass on my cut table. We'll make all that look nice and pretty. Let's connect this dot on this back edge. Now, you may be saying that looks really simple, that looks really easy. It's not. 32 years, you know, and I'm constantly learning, but hand cutting, freehand cutting, definitely takes practice. I know this is what a lot of your newer tenders struggle with is pattern cutting, and a lot of people rely real heavily on a plotter, computer to cut them, and that's great for newer cars. An older car like this, there won't be a pattern in the computer for a plotter to cut. So if you can't cut one of these things by hand, you just lose out on that business. It's not something that you're going to be able to do because all of your computer cut programs nowadays won't have patterns for an older vehicle like this. So this is where hand cutting really comes into play. I've got my window cut, my pattern's on the board, it's ready to go. I've already razor bladed this window. I've got my seals taped up here. Now it's time to final clean the window. I'll soak it down with some soapy water, and a couple of things I'll show you how I do these windows. For starters, I want to clean this top edge of this window. Dirt can sit on the top edge of this glass, and once wet, that dirt can run. You know, gravity is going to drag it down. So we want to wipe this top edge and get this top edge nice and clean. Once we get that top edge clean, what I like to do with my rubber squeegee again is run it down the edges to get this nice and clean. I have a rubber squeegee on an Unger handle, and because it's a lot larger, it takes fewer strokes to knock out the majority of the window. And so I'll use it to clean the majority of the window, and I'll use a smaller squeegee like this to really get good into the edges. So get all that nice and clean. Once I've got the window final clean and ready to install, I like to run a little water to flush anything down. If there was anything I missed, this water is going to take it and drag it down so it's not hanging out here in the seal. I'm going to do the same at the bottom to flush anything down, and I'm just going to mist the entire window really lightly. This is a process called two-staging, where I'm only going to put the top 2/3 of the window on first. If you'll notice, I'm going to expose all of this. I'm going to expose the corners so we don't have static electricity here in the corners. When I peel that, there again, wet your fingertips, and this window's ready to install. I like to set one side first, and I'm going to get it all the way down, and then we're going to slide it into place, get my back, slide it in, and then I want to set my top gap. You really can separate the men from the boys by how tight a gap they get in the top. And some people like to shave the edges, some people can file the edges. I can do all of those different techniques. But personally, I just like setting a tight gap. And that's probably 1/16 of an inch, maybe 3/32 of an inch at the top. Looks really, really nice. It's consistent with the glass. Same thing in the corners. Everything's consistent. There's no light gaps here, no light gaps down the back. And I'm going to check for that. Make sure all of that looks good. Once I have it where I want it, I'll make sure it's locked down into place so it doesn't slide with me. Once we get it there, I'm satisfied. We're going to roll this window up. Notice that window kind of shifts funny. I'll take a thin squeegee like so, and we'll wet down this bottom, and then we'll peel our bottom third. This is two-staging. I'm going to pick this up and use my thin squeegee, and we're going to feed this film down at the bottom behind the felt seals, and we'll get it all tucked into place. So now this tint is down below this seal system, so there's nothing to rub at the bottom. Mist the window over, and we'll use our squeegee to squeegee it down. I like to get a harder squeegee to get up in the edges real good where you can't get, and make sure all that water is flushed out, and get down to the bottom edge of the seal. Make sure everything's laying down good there. We also use a hard card with paper towel wrapped around it for what we call bumping the edges. And so when I bump these edges, any water that's left behind, the paper towel is going to pick up that excess water. So instead of leaving the water on the glass, we want to get that water off the glass, especially out from around the edges. And that's what that squeegee will do for you there. You notice what I told you earlier in my video, water. See, there's excess water here from doing this window. So whatever excess water I've got hasn't caused any problems on this window at the bottom. So now we'll wipe this window down. Real quick light, inside and out. Obviously this is a 66 model truck, and the glass is definitely not in good shape. There's a lot of swirl marks and scratches in the glass, and obviously that's on the outside. There's nothing I can do about that. But if you get your camera here and get up close, it's easy to see. There's no light gaps anywhere at the back, and of course at the bottom, and turned out fantastic. I mean, it's a super clean window there, and same thing for the vent window. So these vehicles, like I say, can definitely be challenging, but they also can be really rewarding. And when you can take an old truck like this and bring it back to life, this is going to make a huge difference as far as the air conditioner in the truck, keeping them cool, and also adding a stylish look to the old truck as well. But I'm super happy, super stoked how this thing came out, really, really clean. And if you do a few of them and get good at them, you can just about do them as fast as you can some of the newer trucks. It just takes time and takes practice. And but yeah, 66 Ford pickup truck. If you've never done one before, maybe one day you'll run across one and get a chance to do it. Everything turned out great, and thanks for watching the video. Have a blessed day.